It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 224. In that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. Happy Tuesday, y'all. Happy Tuesday out there to all y'all. Hope y'all doing excellent today as always. And I'm glad that y'all came back once again to fuck with the bean. Now, I did say it's Tuesday, right? And y'all know the channel that we go to on Tuesdays. He just dropped this video like 2 hours ago. And that is Mike from that chapter. Going back to Mike once again, y'all. I wonder how many goddamn Mike from that chapter videos we got on the channel now. I'm pretty sure it's at least 20 to 25, 30. We got a lot of these. And we ain't gonna stop watching Mike, man, because he is awesome. Now, check the title of the video out. The horrific Eastburn family murders. This one sound like it's gonna be real sad because it's saying family murders. Like, this is multiple people, more than likely kids involved. So this is gonna be a crazy one. It's 30 minutes long, so we in for a little long ride this time. But before we jump in the car and go on that long ride, my brothers and sisters, you know what you got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need, because it's time to get back into Mike from that chapter. Y'all got what y'all need? Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, the year be 1986, and in North Carolina, a soldier, no less, went on trial for a gruesome crime. An entire family just gone. However,
damn,
it turned out he was innocent.
Damn.
According to the jury, because he was kind of having a bit of a chuckle to himself as he walked home. Or was he? Because people still have questions to this very day. And even though that happened back in 1985 and 1986, this came back into the news in 2010. This is a saga for you folks. It's a gosh darn, excuse my French, saga. Get a coffee, grab the puppy C, and rest those dogs, big dog. I personally had never heard of this case before, and so when I started researching into it and went down, down the rabbit hole, my mind was blown, because this is like straight out of a movie. But it's not, because it's real life, so like, yeah. Let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. And get whatever you may need.
So the setting for this one is Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, which is fitting because pretty much everybody involved in this is military or like military families. If you might actually remember Fayetteville from a story about another soldier I did a couple of years back, Kelly Bordeaux. The main thing I just remember from that one is this. Snip, snip, Nicky! So like before there was Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace to sell all your, L shite. Well, back then, there was magazines, right? And buy and sells and that kind of stuff, trade offers, jobs. Now, kind of people just use it for obituaries. But back then, they used it, for everything. And who knew? Because I always tell stories about, internet Tinder dates gone wrong and internet stuff and yada, yada, yada. Well, that old stuff, if you can believe it, would also go wrong. And in 1985, it went real wrong. Like, S-hit wrong. The date was May 10th, 1985. A woman named Jeanette, who lived on Summerhill Road in Fayetteville, became concerned about her neighbors, the Eastburns, at 367 Summerhill Road, when she heard their baby crying continuously. For an 18-month-old, right? she knew the next door neighbors, the Eastburns. Their youngest was 18 months and crying. I mean, come on, it's like part of you sign up for that. But this baby was crying continuously, so much so that Jeanette, the next day, May 11th, she still heard the baby crying. Now, she felt something was off. The house was dark, newspapers were piling up on the front door, uncollected for days. The mother, Catherine, Katie Eastburn, still had her car parked in the driveway. There had been zero movement in that house, for days, other than a baby crying, which is, incredibly ominous. Jeanette called the police, and then on May 12th, police made their way into that Eastburn home. They broke in a window. The baby was still there, caked in dirt, nappies full, crying, dry tears all over its face, but the baby, dangerously dehydrated, but alive.
Good.
Unfortunately, though, everybody else who had been in that house was not. The police discovered the decomposing bodies of that baby, the rest of her family. That was her mother, Catherine, 32 years old, and sisters Cara, 5 years old, and Erin, 3 years old. The baby had been in that house alone for a couple of days with bodies.
But see, this what I gotta say real quick, y'all. Just me personally, if I hear a baby crying, I hear a baby crying in the house, I'm not waiting a couple of days to go report or go try to see what the fuck going on in the house. Now I can understand, babies do cry, that you hear it going on for maybe a couple of hours, but I say no longer than 10 hours if you still hear this baby crying. You know what I'm saying? You should know something going on. What I'm just really trying to say is, y'all, I feel like that neighbor, and I ain't blaming the neighbor trying to chastise or put that on or whoever, but I just feel like they could have acted quicker on going to see why the hell this baby cried instead of waiting for days and days and days after to finally say something. And the second thing I already got a question to is, whoever did this left the little young baby alive, but they still killed babies. Them little kids, 2, 3 years old, however old they is, them babies too. So why did they leave the baby alive? This is going to be an interesting one, y'all. This is going to be very interesting and crazy.
Around her. This is grim. I mean, it sounds dark because it is dark.
It is.
Don't take pictures right now in this area, please.
So who were the victims, and what happened in the days leading up to this? Catherine and Gary Eastburn met in 1970. They dated for 5 years before getting married. And in 1979, they had a daughter, Cara, and then in 1982, Erin, and finally in 1983, a third daughter. Catherine, Katie Eastburn, she was living, the single mother lifestyle, while her husband, Gary, he was away for 10 weeks, training with the Air Force in Alabama. So she was, in Fayetteville with her 3 young daughters, alone. And the Eastburns were actually they were preparing the house in Fayetteville for a move. Gary was about to be based in England, so Catherine was, packing up the boxes, getting ready to move, across continents. Essentially, he was going to be based in a US base in England, so they were like, yippee. Now, of course, to Catherine, this was, married to a military guy. This was nothing especially new. She wasn't worried about this upcoming move. She was, she was pretty well used to it at this stage. The only thing, though, that was bothering Catherine, Katie Eastburn about this upcoming move to England was their dog. They had an English setter named Dixie, and they just didn't feel great about bringing the dog with them. They didn't think it was fair, to drag the dog all the way across the Atlantic. The dog was, getting on in years, just a little bit, along in the L canines. That works pretty well. And so what Katie did was put in an ad in the local newspaper, just like I was saying at the start. An offer, hey, listen, could anybody rehome our beloved dog Dixie? Then on May 7th, 1985, Katie got a call. A guy, he came, picked up Dixie, he called her the same day he came, picked her up, left with her. He was like, yeah, thanks for the dog. That guy's name was Timothy Hennis. Then on May 11th, which was a Saturday, and this is 4 days after the dog has been picked up, the Eastburns are packing up all their stuff, Gary, who was in Alabama, doing training, he called his wife that Saturday morning. Now, that was a ritual. They did it for years. Every Saturday morning, they would have their call to shoot the shit and do everything. Only this time when Gary called, his wife didn't pick up. And that was immediately alarming to Gary. Like, he would later say he had a bad feeling, like a foreboding that she didn't answer the phone. Now, it's not like he was freaking out or anything. I'm sure he was even thinking to himself, I mean, she didn't miss the call. I don't want to overreact to a missed call. But then as the day went on and she didn't call him back, Gary called the police in Fayetteville. Hey, would you mind just, popping over, having a goo at the old house there, check on the old wife and kids? I, have a bad feeling. An officer went up. Knock, knock, knocked on the Eastburn family home. The house was dark. The house was quiet. The officer said they didn't hear no baby, left a note on the door, left. Now, interestingly enough, this was May 11th. Jeanette, the neighbor, she'd been hearing the baby at this stage, so I guess the officers called at a bad time. But then it was the next day, May 12th, with Gary and the neighbor both calling again. A disturbing scene was found. These officers, they rocked up, looking in the window, seeing the things outside were kind of weird, with newspapers piling up and the house being dark, and then hearing baby, the baby themselves. They looked in the window, they saw it, smashed in the window, took out the baby, went in. This quickly went from welfare check to homicide investigation, and they quickly smelled something awful from inside. That was when they discovered Katie Eastburn. The 32-year-old mother was found on the floor beside her bed, her bra lifted up to her chin, her pants removed, and her underwear cut off. She had been sexually assaulted and stabbed 15 times.
Okay, so what y'all think? Y'all think it's the dude who came picked up the dog? I think his name was Timothy. Y'all think he the one who did this shit? Because that's what I'm leaning towards. But another thing I'm kind of stuck on is, okay, when the husband called, the police said, can you go check up and see why my wife ain't answer the phone? I'm so many miles away, I can't see myself. And then they go and they knocked on the door and they said, they ain't hear no baby crying. Why they ain't hear the baby crying? Was the baby asleep at this time? Just had cried itself to sleep, for a couple of hours? You know what I'm saying? I just find that shit a little weird to me. But I think it's Timothy, man. Another thing that I'm stuck on to real quick, y'all, is why in the hell he killed like this little boy. No, that's a little girl, right? She had all 3 girls. Killed 2 of the daughters, but left the youngest one alive. That shit's so weird. I don't know.
Kara, just 5 frickin' years old, was found under a Star Wars blanket, having been stabbed 5 times. The youngest, Erin, at just 3 years old, had blunt force trauma to her chest and her back, and all 3 victims had their throats slit. Upon investigation, police found no forced entry to the home. DNA was found under Catherine's fingernails. There was DNA inside her. They found fingerprints and footprints and a lame attempt at a blood cleanup, and $300 missing from the home, along with Katie's credit card. Police did a pretty dismal job at calling Gary back, and so when they finally did, Gary in Alabama, waiting to hear his wife's voice on the phone, instead got, what you can imagine, it's unimaginable. The investigation sprang up. Witnesses questioned. Sketches done of who was in the area the 9th of May, early hours on the 10th of May, when it's believed the murders were committed.
It makes me feel pretty worried right now. My wife and I, we live in this neighborhood, and this is a shock. We've been living here almost 2 years.
And they have 3 kids, 3 girls, okay? And the woman, her husband had to go to Alabama to go to school, okay? Hey, she is like gone. She got killed, and 2 of her daughters got killed. One of her daughters, which is the baby, she's okay, and she's in the hospital. There's nothing wrong with her, just keeping there, I guess, for observation, surveillance, or something like that. I don't know. No one has any right to be killed in the first place, but I mean, especially this woman, she's just too nice of a woman, you know.
Get an idea who would do this?
Well, she was getting some strange phone calls that she
Julie, don't be giving no ideas who did something.
I ain't giving no ideas about. Would you just look?
No,
I'm telling him what he wants to know.
You don't know nothing.
He says, do you have any idea? I'm telling him what I think.
Wow, what was that, man? I don't know if that was her mama, grandma, or whatever, but maybe I'm just thinking the grandma was just trying to tell her, don't be trying to, don't say that shit on that damn camera for the damn killer to come back and be looking for your ass. I think that what grandma was trying to tell her then. So I ain't gonna be mad at grandma, you know what I'm saying? Don't put yourself in the middle of this shit by giving out names or whatever. But another thing that I can say is, that man set up, I don't see how somebody can sit up there and stab a fucking 5-year-old and 3-year-old to death. Like that shit just don't even compute in my head, and it make my heart so weak to even the thought of somebody doing that. Man, this world fucked up, y'all. Be careful. Shit.
Now let's move to another soldier, the guy who collected that dog Dixie, who happened to be one of the last people to see the family alive. Timothy Bailey Hennis, born February 24th, 1958, was a sergeant in the US military in Fort Bragg. He grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, and graduated high school in 1976. At the time of the murders, Timothy was just the ripe old age of 27. Him and his wife Angela just had their first child, a daughter, Kristen, just 10 weeks old, at the time of the murders. Tim worked, like in the military, what his job was a parachute. Get in there. Fixer-upper guy, packs your parachutes. That guy. Anywho, moving on. Him and his wife Angela, they currently had a dog, a Spitz, and they didn't want the dog to be an only dog. They wanted, their dog to have a pal. So, he looked in the classified ads of the local newspaper, and that's where he saw Catherine Cady Eastburn's ad to adopt Dixie the dog. He went and collected Dixie from the Eastburn home on the 7th of May. Then on the 9th of May, so 2 days after rehousing Dixie the dog, he talked to Catherine Eastburn on the phone. It was literally just one of those conversations though, hey, how's the dog doing? Is he adjusting? Yada yada yada. Later on that same day, the 9th of May, Tim went and he drove his wife and their baby daughter to the in-laws. He didn't stay long though, he drove directly back home, aside from a quick stop off to get some fuel for the car. And that was his kind of alibi for the day. Not a great one, especially because CCTV wasn't really like a thing back then. So, back to the murders. And now you have Tim Hennis, arm around the old wife, watching the news, and the story of Catherine, the Eastburn murders comes on. And Tim is like, oh shit, right? I just adopted a dog from there. This is crazy. It was also reported that witnesses saw a white Chevy outside the Eastburn home on the early hours of May 10th. Tim Hennis just happened to have a white Chevy. A witness also described seeing a man in the early hours of that day outside the Eastburn home, a white guy with blonde hair wearing a members only jacket. They did a sketch. Tim must have had like an oh shit moment because, tell me 10 differences between these two images. Be specific.
You can't. That sketch look damn near identical. Like that's a 1-to-1 goddamn draw up of what the fuck that man. I'm even more confident now that it's Tim. I'm even more confident. But you never know how these stores go. So let's just see. I'm getting depressed as fuck with this one, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. Jesus.
So Tim, obviously, as you can imagine, freaking out, right? He's seen the family just a couple of days before the murders. The witness said they saw a car that was the same car as his, and the sketch looked exactly like him. Tim, freaking out, Tim immediately, when he saw this on the news, he went to the police. He was like, I gotta clear my name, right? I gotta go to the police immediately and tell them that's not me. Do whatever tests need to do. Look at my, he had a soldier, served his country. He had a great military record. Everybody liked him. He immediately was like, I gotta clear my name. This is batshit. The police, they kept him for over 7 hours, getting blood, saliva, fingerprints, DNA, and Tim was nothing but cooperative. Now remember, this is 1985, DNA wasn't quite what it is today. In fact, it was kind of a little bit non-existent back then. But Tim, please take all my samples, right? Take everything, it will clear me. Now remember the witness account and the composite sketch? Well, this witness was a janitor, a guy named Patrick, and he started his days early for work. He told police that around 3:30 a.m. that morning, the 10th of May, he saw a white man in a black members-only jacket carrying a garbage bag leaving the Eastburn's home. Members-only jackets, the tagline was, do they still make them? It was, anyway.
I really believe in them. So should you.
When you put it on, something happens. No shit. And Patrick will say he saw him get into a white Chevy, same as Tim's. And so the police brought Patrick, the witness, back in. Had Tim Hennis do a police lineup. Patrick immediately, Tim, pointing at Tim. Even with that, now Tim was let go, while the police were like, yeah, we could use a good old warrant for this. The police showed up at Tim's house that night, to the house he shared with his wife Angela and his 10-week-old baby daughter, and they charged him with 3 counts of first-degree homicide. And, you know, following that, things weren't great for Tim's claims of innocence, because he just so happened to also have a black members-only jacket. Funnily enough, it was something he had just dropped off to the dry cleaners.
Wow.
Like, members-only jackets do not need to be dry cleaned.
Timothy B. Hennessy of 2026 Lombardi Drive here in Fayetteville, and charged 3 counts of murder in the first degree and 1 count of sexual assault.
A neighbor would also say they'd seen Tim in his backyard, pouring lighter fluid, you know, on like a drum barrel burning ship for like 5 hours. The neighbor was questioned, said Tim never burned stuff in his backyard like ever. This was weird. That's why they noticed it, because it was weird. And then also Tim just magically happened to show up with money for his landlord, his month's rent, and Tim was always behind on his rent. And guess what? Tim just happened to be behind on his rent by $300.
Wow.
The exact amount of money that was stolen from the Eastburn home. And remember, Catherine's bank card, or like her credit card, was stolen from the house too. Well, the police were able to track down to where it had been used. Now, there wasn't like cameras in ATMs like there is today, but they were able to track down when it had been used, and witnesses would say, yeah, they saw a guy, tall, blonde, using it. So, Tim also had a history of money problems and writing bad checks, so it's like all kind of coming together in a big old shit pie for Tim Hennis over here.
It is coming together like it's him. Like every fucking thing is leading to it actually being him. Everything. But my what I'm stuck on now is, if he knew that he did this shit and all this evidence was against him, why was he so openly? First of all, he the one went to the police. Second of all, he was so openly about giving them DNA samples, blood samples, fingerprints. You know what I'm saying? So he openly doing all that. So you know you gonna end up getting caught if all that shit come back positive or whatever. So that's the part that just got me confused, y'all. I don't know. Let's go.
When Cumberland County authorities arrested Timothy Hennis last May, they said they were sure they had the right man.
Well, we have probable cause. That's the reason the warrants were issued.
What was the probable cause?
Well, I'd rather not go into that right at this particular time.
Hennis was charged with the brutal murders of Catherine Eastburn and 2 of her children at their Summer Hill Road home in Cumberland County a week earlier. Detectives say this man, Patrick Cohn, identified Hennis as the man he saw leaving the Eastburn house at 3:30 in the morning on May 10th, 2 days before the 3 bodies were found with stab wounds and cut throats. Investigators say the victims had been dead 48 hours and say the murderer did a good job of hiding his tracks. In December, Hennis was released on bond after his attorneys argued there was little, if any, physical evidence to implicate the young Army sergeant. Today, Hennis was back in court, this time his lawyers challenging the prosecution's eyewitness.
Now, in 1985, DNA testing, it's not where it was today, and blood samples and that sort of thing, they came back inconclusive. So there was no, like, physical evidence tying Tim to the scene, but, like, it was all kind of circumstantial. was a lot of circumstantials, though.
Lots.
The
Hey, you know something else I just thought about too, man? Gotta say this, y'all. You know how I was like, and I know y'all thinking out there too, like, why would he leave the youngest baby alive, right? The little baby. But maybe he left her alive because he saw his daughter in that little baby. Because if I ain't mistaken, his daughter was like 11 months at this time, and that baby, of I can't think of the lady name who got killed, and the two daughters, the baby were 18 months. So maybe it just at a flash, he just seen, you know what I'm saying, his daughter in her because of the age, how close in age they was. So he couldn't find the heart to kill her. Now I'm just making, you know, just spitballing because the shit really still don't make no sense. Because I look at 18, 11-month-year-old, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, all of them still just young, innocent children, bro. But I'm just trying to make sense of the situation. Let's go.
trial for the murders against Tim Hennis went ahead on May 27, 1986, a year after the murders. Tim had previously declined a plea deal, stating he refused to accept a deal when he wasn't guilty. So, Tim's father, a big-time executive at IBM, hired 2 top hotshot lawyers to defend his son. During the trial, the prosecution showed 2 days' worth of graphic, gory, and horrific crime scene photos of both little girls and their mother, all looking at Tim for a reaction. He had none. Some would say it was because he was guilty. Others said he didn't know how to react. You know, if he cried out of guilt. If he didn't, he was a cold-blooded killer. The jury deliberated for just 10 hours and found Tim Hennis guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to death.
Now see, I think I gotta say this too real quick, y'all. I don't know if he did it or not. As crazy this shit may sound. Now some of y'all might be like, what the fuck? You don't know if he did it or not. All the evidence, all this and that. I don't know, because of his actions, man. Why would he be so open to the police to clear his name, knowing damn well all this evidence was against him, unless it wasn't him? But there's a lot of evidence that's against him. I ain't gonna lie. I'm 50-50 like a motherfucker right now. I'm 50-50. I don't know which way to believe.
Story over? Not by a long shot. Get a load of this. While serving his time on death row, Tim received an anonymous letter from one Mr. X. It read, "Dear Mr. Hennis, I did the crime. I murdered the Eastburns. Sorry you're doing the time. I'll be safely out of North Carolina when you read this. Thanks, Mr. X." Whoa, can you believe this? Someone just admitted to doing the murders? This is crazy! Holy monkey, get him out of there! The X in Mr. X stands for extremely fake. Mr. X now has never been identified. In fact, nobody's even had, hazarded a guess as to who this non-existent person could possibly be. I mean, it's a mystery. It's a mystery up there with, where does Barney the dinosaur sleep at night? I don't know. Regardless, an appeal was approved due to the defense's claim that the jury sat through grueling crime scene photos that unjustifiably pinned the jurors against him.
Did you kill these 3 people? No, I did not kill these people. I have a daughter of my own, and I could not hurt any children at all.
Did you do this crime?
No, I did not.
How does all this make you feel?
Extremely upset and angry.
He would have a retrial, right? You got part 2 coming up, and the crime scene photos this time would be limited. Tim spent 2 years on death row before trial number 2 would begin in February 1989. With no physical evidence, the defense now were poking and prodding every piece of circumstantial evidence they could this time around. Remember janitor Patrick, right? The guy who had seen Tim leaving that morning, the car, it all. Well, it turned out that he was an unreliable witness, and his testimony was all over the place. For example, he said, he saw Tim clear as day across the street at 3 o'clock in the morning. But then they would get a meteorologist in, and even a helicopter pilot in. They would say, no, that day was foggy as shit. Right? You couldn't see it. The helicopter would testify he couldn't even fly his helicopter when he was due to fly at that time because it was so foggy. So it made, you know, the janitor saying it was clear as day. Not that. They discredited a witness who saw Tim at the ATM, saying they had seen Tim at the ATM for 3 minutes. Which is like, well, that's a long time. 3 minutes? To be at an ATM, it takes like, what, a minute maximum? Like, they even did a recreation of it, and it's like, 3 minutes is far too long to be standing at an ATM. This is kind of clearly kind of bullshit. And the final, though, key piece of evidence that the defense had, and this is kind of crazy, was that it turned out there was a neighbor of the Eastburns who always went for a walk around the neighborhood at that time, who looked exactly like Tim. He was blonde. He was the same height as Tim. He had a members only jacket. Like, when they brought this guy, when the defense brought this guy in, people gasped because it could have been Tim's twin. So that was that, with no physical evidence.
We gotta go back, y'all. We gotta go back. We gotta look at this shit.
When the defense brought this guy in, people gasped because it could have been.
Bro, you can't tell me them dudes don't look like fucking brothers. Like, they look like blood brothers. I ain't gonna say they look like twins, or they may not look like identical twins, but they can at least be, what the word is, fraternal twins. I think that's the word. Y'all know what I'm saying, man. I know y'all know twins that y'all have met in y'all life, or y'all know in y'all life who actually are twins, and they look damn near the same, but they not identical together. And boy, goddamn, so I can see how Tim can actually get confused and mixed up in this shit, and that could be the damn man right there on the right. Now, I just said I was 50-50 a couple of minutes ago. Now I gotta say I'm 75% the right guy dude and 25% Tim, man. But I still don't fucking know, though. I don't know, man, about this one. I don't know who did this shit.
Tim's twin. So that was that. With no physical evidence and enough doubt cast on his guilt, Tim Hennis was back to being a free man. He was acquitted on all counts, free to live his life, be reunited with his wife, and watch his daughter grow up.
I did not expect that to come out, though. They actually let the man go after this shit. Not only just that picture of that man right there, but they let him go because of the witnesses' accounts came back to be false in a way. You know what I'm saying? They weren't credible enough. But I still ain't think they were gonna let him go. This man went from being on death row to being let out of prison for a triple homicide. And I don't know if he did it or not. I don't know. But wow.
Who, at this time, was now 4 years old.
I guess it's kind of hard to believe it's finally here.
9, 10.
Ready or not?
A month after he was freed, Tim Hennis and his wife Angela were paid to appear on A Current Affair.
They were out to get somebody, just somebody, that they could pin it on and get it out of the news.
And you didn't do it?
No, I did not.
Oh, the end. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And you know this is not over, not even close. So Tim, he rejoined the army, and he got one a hell of a reputation, right? He was reunited with his wife. He rose up the ranks of the U.S. military. He served in Somalia. He served in Iraq. He was given like all the badges and everything. He was doing great. He would later have another kid with his wife Angela. They would have a son together before finally, in 2004, he would retire with full honors from the U.S. military, retiring to Fort Lewis in the state of Washington. A happy ending for, a military vet who had horrific allegations, pointed at him, right? Who had been on death row. One funny thing, though, is that Gary Eastburn and his surviving daughter, they ended up relocating to London. They tried to put, this unimaginable tragedy behind them. But they would eventually move back to America, to the state of Washington, to a town 15 minutes from where Tim Hennis and his family now lived.
Wow. And
so they were living in fear. The Eastburns now were living in fear the entire time of running into who they still believed had murdered, Catherine and the two girls. Then in 2006, something extraordinary happened. That being DNA technology. advanced. Cold cases were being reopened, killers reinvestigated, and one detective going through the files stumbled across the Eastburn family homicides. Because of this, they were unsolved, right? The guy they thought did it, turned out he didn't do it, or the defense worked for him, so they reopened the case of who could have done this. But now they had lots of DNA. And so now, straight out of a movie, Tim Hennis, who had been on trial twice for this horrific crime, the police still had his DNA, they retested it, and it was Tim. When they retested this DNA, the number was something like, there was a 1.2 quadrillion chance it was not Tim. Like, it was something insane. So, though, you probably already guessed the problem here. What to do, because he's already been on trial for these murders twice and been acquitted. And there's that old thing called double jeopardy. You cannot go on trial for the same crime twice. But there is a loophole for the military where, you know, it's a different court. So he could go on trial for that. He could be, even if...
Man, now I feel bad, y'all. I just feel bad that I sat right here for all this time in my brain thinking that it wasn't him. It couldn't have been him. And come to find out it was fucking him, man. Motherfucker, man. That's why I'm just glad it's 2023, man, and we got the DNA to just know who the hell it is. Maybe he was smart back then because, you know, DNA wasn't advanced enough, and that's why he was so open to the police just giving up his fingerprints and, you know, and all that shit. Yeah, God damn it, I'm glad he ended up getting caught, but we got to think about how long he actually got out for. How long he was out for that shit. He spent like 2-3 years in prison, then, hell, he was out for... what, like 15 years, 10, 15, going on 20 years? Man, damn.
They've been in and out of courts, civilian courts. They can still be court-martialed in a military court. But there's a problem with that. You can only be court-martialed if you were an active member of the U.S. Military, if you're a serving member. And Tim retired in 2004. So,
wow.
What an officer did was, hey Tim, got one last job for you. You know, come out of retirement, just one more thing. They asked Tim if he would come out of retirement. And Tim said yes. They simply
got his dumb ass.
Asked him to come out of retirement. I mean, they lied to him. They just wanted Tim to come out of retirement so they could charge him with the Eastburn family murders, but they gave him some bullshit reason. And so, in September 2006, Tim, back fully active, you know, military, serving member, and 1 year later, after he signed back up, he was charged with the Eastburn family murders. His third trial would begin in March 2010. During this 3-week trial, the front and center most damning piece of evidence was obviously the new DNA, and previous evidence with, well, the DNA now just makes it more. Now the defense, they tried to say that the footprints, the fingerprints, the blood, the hair did not match Tim Hennis, which is true. There was a lot of like inconclusive evidence there, and evidence of some unknown person. But a big thing was his DNA was found inside Catherine, and so it's like, you know, that doesn't exactly get there by accident. But now, Tim, oh guys, I forgot to tell you, 25 years before, because this is in 2010, it happened in 85, he said, the night before I had sex with Catherine Eastburn. Forgot, it slipped my mind for 25 years. It's never brought it up. Sorry about that.
Really?
Tim was convicted. In April 2010, he was sentenced to death.
Good.
I mean, it's also worth saying he was demoted, dishonorably discharged, stripped of everything. His appeals this time went nowhere, and he sits on death row right now. The last military execution was back in 1961, so it's safe to say Tim may never be executed, and he's been busy requesting appeals and trying to find any way out of this, the last one being in 2020, but this has all been denied. In all likelihood, Timothy Hennis will stay on death row for the rest of his natural-born life. Gary Eastburn has said he's very happy with that.
Hope none of you feel that I'm gloating over this I'm not. I just feel like justice has finally been done.
Finally.
This case is insane. It's batshit. I swear I've never come across any case like this. Woo! I need a drink. But wow, folks, just wow. I mean, Shanae, I really don't know of any other way to end this video other than that. Let me know what you think about this one down below, because, yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to be...
Man, bro. I believe that is the most deep, crazy case I ever heard from Mike. Shit, probably from anybody, bro. Man, and he wasn't lying neither, man. Somebody can literally make a movie out of that damn case. That true crime story most definitely could be a movie, and you never know, man. One day somebody might make one, because god damn, man. I gotta start off by saying, y'all, I feel a little bad, man. It's just me. I feel a little guilty, a little just bad about that. I was actually contemplating that it wasn't him. At one point, I'm saying it's 75% not him and maybe 25% still him. You know what I'm saying? Oh, man, and it ended up being fucking him. And another thing that just hurt me so bad is that he actually got out for all that goddamn time, man. He was free for so many years after doing that. Oh my God, bro. This case is fucking crazy as fuck. And then he's such a dumbass. He's such a dumbass. Not the police. Well, I guess the police was involved on it. But how the military told him, hey, we need you to come back. Because that was the only way they could actually take him to trial because of double jeopardy. And that's another thing, y'all. Double fucking jeopardy. This case right here is the classic reason why double jeopardy probably need to go away. Because, I mean, for the most part, I do agree with it, like it worked, but I don't know. That shit need to go away, especially for old ass cases like this. Like, y'all know double jeopardy, right? Is if you go on trial for something and then you end up not being guilty for it, you can never be put back on trial for that shit. You know what I'm saying? And he almost would have got away with it, but he was in the military, so they had a whole different plan and shit. You know what I'm saying? It was different rules to it, and all they had to do was get him back in the military to get him. So at the end of the day, we end up getting him. They end up getting him because of that loophole in the system, or however you want to describe it. But like I said, man, this is just a classic case of why double jeopardy probably don't need to be here no more, man. We need to change something up. And thank God for technology, man. Thank God for technology, y'all. That goddamn his DNA was able to be tested, and what he said, and Mike said in 2006, and the shit came back. That's why I said, man, thank God it's 2023, man. Maybe it'll stop some of these fucking murders. I doubt it, but at least we'll be able to catch them. If he got away with that shit back in the 1980s, imagine how many other motherfuckers who got away with shit because of technology or DNA and all that shit when it's advanced as it is now. This story was crazy as fuck, y'all. I can't stop thinking about it and talking about it. I need to go and let y'all go, man, but god damn. I'm gonna let y'all go, my brothers and sisters, man. I appreciate y'all coming back as always, bro. Great fucking video from Mike. Whew. Y'all just make sure y'all hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and help our channel out grow and grow and grow more and more and more. And until I see y'all later, my brothers and sisters, you know I got to say this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.